Hello, this is Bartholomew Orr, and I'm so thankful for you joining me on this journey as we chronicle the stories and lifestyles of some of the world's most innovative people who will share how their faith, wisdom, and direction helped them to change lives and make a difference in these unprecedented times. It's my prayer that these out-of-the-box conversations with extraordinary people would really help all of us to think different about our faith and just about how we do the unthinkable in the midst of what we're going through right now. And I'm excited today because I have joining with me Paul Young. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my goodness. Downtown Memphis Commission President and CEO. That sounds impressive.
Yeah. It's a cool gig. I've enjoyed being here. I've been here since April of last year, and so it's been a great run.
So tell me exactly what it is. What is the Memphis Downtown Commission?
Yeah, so the Downtown Memphis Commission is responsible for the growth and development of downtown. We like to use the mantra that we're creating a downtown for everyone, and part of my pitch is that downtown literally is the living room for the whole region. So, if we want great things to happen in the Mid-South region, whether it's the city of Memphis, Collierville, South Haven, Crittenden County in Arkansas, it all starts with downtown. So a strong, thriving downtown helps us all get more for our communities. And so that's what I'm a part of.
Well, that's one of the things that I see even as I travel or get back to traveling around is that most cities and everyone, they have, I guess, that special hub that kind of bring everyone together.
Yeah.
And so downtown Memphis, all right. Was it already there or did you kind of help start it? Or?
Yeah, so the organization was there. There have been a number of great presidents that have done work prior to me being there. I've had an opportunity to inherit a great staff, and so we've just kept our foot on the gas. So we're responsible for development. When you hear about a new project happening downtown and they tell you that, some tax abatement took place, it came through our organization. There are grants and loans that we provide to a lot of the small businesses downtown. So we just do all we can to make sure it's vibrant.
Now, one of the things I was seeing just recently, I was traveling down Vance. I don't know how far downtown extend, but I was traveling down Vance and I saw all of these beautiful homes and residential areas going up, apartments and so forth. Would that be part of what you all are doing?
So that is a project that we are very proud of. That's the Foot Park at South City. And in my prior job, I was the Director of Housing and Community Development for the City of Memphis for 5 years. And so that was one of my major projects was working on that project. So it's one that I'm super proud of. And I'm proud as Downtown Memphis President because it means that we're going to have affordable housing in downtown, and that's what we need. We got to make sure that downtown is diverse, not just racially, but also economically. And so having areas of opportunity for those that live in affordable housing is really, really important.
Well, I was excited about that because I was driving down Vans. I was seeing all of the churches lined up, and I'm like, hey, God has brought people back to the church, back to the inner city, and that's a wonderful thing.
Absolutely, and my dad actually grew up in Foot Home, so
really,
the previous version, my dad grew up there, so it was a blessing for me to have an opportunity.
And now you're making a change
absolutely
in the current time. My goodness, talk about faith. Talk about faith. Now, did I see some political aspirations as well?
Yeah, so I put my name in the hat. I'm running for mayor, Memphis mayor next year, mayor of the city of Memphis. I'm really excited about that. 2023, so it's going to be a long run, but I'm going to do it prayerfully, and I've been working all my life for that opportunity, and so
now you're looking pretty young. You're looking pretty young, Paul. Look, Paul Young, who's looking young.
I like to look young, but I'm 42, so I've been working for the last 20 years in this space. So I'm a city builder. My background is city planning and urban development. I went to school. I had this spiritual moment. As you know, my parents are both preachers, William and Diane Young at the Healing Center. Shout out to both of them.
Hey.
I had this spiritual moment when my mom was preaching this sermon. She was talking about the purpose-driven life. And at this point, I had just graduated from college. I had a couple of my brothers from Kappa Alpha Psi. I'm a brother of Kappa Alpha Psi. They were calling me and telling me how I need to move to Atlanta and L.A. and all these cool cities where they were. And I went to church and I was a little down about it. And my mom was preaching about the purpose-driven life, and she said, God's purpose for your life will never be for you. It will always be for someone else. And so I literally took it that day and I went home and tried to figure out what program can I enroll in where I can do something for somebody else, but also, earn a good living. And I stumbled upon community development, and that's been my path for the last 20 years.
Okay, now I want to pick up on that because, one of the things that we're talking about is faith.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that you are not just a preacher's kid, you are preacher's kid.
Yeah, both of them. Yeah,
both of them.
Yeah.
And great shout out to your dad, Dr. William Young, and your mom, who have just been such an incredible force in the faith community. Let me just say this: they were one of the first ones that I knew of that really brought mental health issue to the forefront of church and faith, and blended it together and took down the taboo of it all. Oftentimes when people would think mental health, oh my goodness, church don't want to talk about it.
We're
if you can't
pray it away.
Look, if you can't pray something away, we try to just hide it. But I appreciate them in the early days with the suicide workshops.
Neglect church,
And all of that, man. So they have been trailblazers in tremendous ways. But I like what you said. Your mom told you that, or she said in the sermon, your purpose is never just for
you. It's never just for you. God's purpose for your life is always for somebody else. And I've been trying to apply that to my whole career. Everything that I've done, I want it to be for somebody else. I want my life, the mere fact that I'm on this earth, to benefit somebody else's life. Like that's to me, that's the greatest testament you can make as an individual.
I heard a great sermon. They were giving it to our educators right before school started. We had brought all of our educators together to try to encourage them and send them out. And the young man said, we never tell our students, what do you want to do to be successful? We ask them, what do you want to do to be significant? Their definition was pretty much just what you said, that success can be about, having the things, everybody might think you're successful because of the possession, the fame that you have, but significance is when you're solving problems, when you're making things better for so many others.
Yeah, that's my goal in life. I just want to solve problems, the tough problems. We've been dealing with the issues that we deal with in Memphis as a whole, in downtown, in our neighborhoods. These aren't problems that just popped up 10 years ago.
Right.
These problems have been going on for 50, 60, 70, 80, sometimes 100 years. It's time for us to be innovative. It's time for us to come together and identify the solutions that get us over the hump as a city.
You're talking about a divine connection. This is a divine connection because one of the things, and I haven't even shared it just out there yet, but Brown operate on 3-year cycles. And so we're ending a 3-year cycle. And so next year we're starting another 3-year cycle. So 23, 24, 25, we're actually going to be focusing in on housing, health, and oh my goodness, housing, health, and I've had a blank.
But those two things go hand in hand. Is something that I feel really passionate about.
It is so important that we address this housing issue, and what better way than coming together to make that happen, not doing things in silos as oftentimes happens, but how do we really come together?
There's so many ways you can come at the housing issue. One of the things that I used to do when I was the housing director, that I would go across the country and talk to people about the intersection of housing and health, and how we often talk about affordable housing in Memphis, and one of the things that people don't often you realize it when you think about it, but you think we want more affordable housing. We want more housing for a lower price. And what I often tell people is that we got plenty of affordable housing in Memphis. The problem is that it's not quality affordable housing.
Right.
It's not housing that's fit to raise a family in. And so when you think about the fact that Memphis, in the state of Tennessee, we have 35% of the pediatric asthma visits to the ER. We're not 35% of the state.
Right.
But the reason we have it is because of the conditions of our housing, because you have mold and all these indoor air quality is poor. So all of these things can be drawn directly to the house. And so what I try to convince people is that one day we need to be able to write a prescription from the doctor's office to say the way for us to remediate your asthma illness or your lead issue is for us to give you a prescription to renovate your home, so that we're using those insurance dollars to actually cure the source of the sickness in many of our community members. So there are so many ways that you can layer this conversation around health and housing that I think as a community we just got to keep that dialogue going.
Well, housing, health, holiness.
Holiness. Well, you definitely need that.
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
we definitely need
and so
that.
how do you blend all three of those together? Because like you said, it's so important. So this whole issue of faith, tell me about your faith journey, especially growing up in a with parents that are preachers.
Right.
How did you make sure that it was your own faith and not
Right.
just your parents' faith and all of that?
Yeah, so my mom, she's told, I think my dad has told the story too in the pulpit. When I was really, really young, I can recall I was probably 8, 9 years old, just breaking down crying, running in my mom and dad's room. And I had this fear of death and just thinking about just our mortality even as a young kid. And I remember crying to her, and she said, "Don't worry about it. You're going to go be with Jesus." And I was like, I don't know him. But, I remember instances like that where I was maturing in my faith. And, for me, what I had to do was just understand that, what my family had been pouring into me, all of the trips back and forth. They had a church in Bolivar, Tennessee. So we would ride up there back and forth, hours and hours in the car. So for a while, I just kind of not turned away from the church, but I had done it so much that I was like, I don't really want to do this. Like, I got to college and I was having a good time and just not turned away from God, but I wasn't as deep in the faith as I could be. But when I graduated, it was around that time when I was telling you about, that sermon that my mom preached. When you get to the point in your life where there's nobody else to turn to, when nobody else can hear your problem or help you solve your problems, you got to find something within. You got to find a higher power. And that's when I started leaning into my faith and saying, all right, God, I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know how this journey is going to work, but I'm just going to turn it over to you.
So really looking for that meaning, looking for that fulfillment in life, and knowing that, the empty things of this world just can't do it all.
It just won't do it. It just won't do it. And, there's no direction there. And, for me, it was about putting it all in his hands and just trusting that while I may not know what's next, that he's gonna lead the path. And once I stopped worrying about it and I just start taking on the steps that were right in front of me, God just laid out the path for me. I had no way of envisioning that I would ever be in a position to even consider running for mayor. Wow. Or to even consider being the president of Downtown Memphis Commission and having an opportunity to impact major developments that are happening in our city. But just staying faithful, and I'm going to keep leaning on them.
Now, so what was it like in college? I mean, you've come out of this preacher's home, been drugged to church all your life.
Yeah.
You finally get off to college and have a little freedom. What was it like?
Yeah, it wasn't too wild. I mean, my parents, while they are faithful, they didn't put a lot of pressure on us to live up to any certain standard. They're real down-to-earth people. So, I didn't feel this urge to just wild out when I got to college. But it was a good time. I was at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville from 97 to 2002. I was on the 5-year plan. Okay. But I made it through in electrical engineering, and it was a good time. Made a lot of deep relationships, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Now, were you able to still stay connected with the church even during that time?
Yeah, I was mostly when I came home. I didn't go to church as deeply when I was in Knoxville. I think I visited a few churches here and there, some of the popular churches in Knoxville, but I didn't have a strong fellowship with any church body. It wasn't until I moved back that I really, really leaned in and got deeply engaged at the Healing Center.
One of the things that, just to piggyback on that, I think that's the reason why college ministry is going to be so important as we go forth, because oftentimes statistics says that 2/3 of the people that leave our churches and go off to college, they won't come back to church. Only 1/3 is returning back to church. And so I do believe churches ought to do just a greater job in terms of making sure that when we send our kids off, that we're following up with them, walking that journey with them.
Yeah.
Because like you said, for you, it was at the end of your college days that really that light bulb went off okay, all right, it's time to really put this faith.
Yeah, I definitely could have used a
action.
deeper relationship while I was in Knoxville, and I agree wholeheartedly that finding ways to stay connected to young people and just changing with the times. I mean, even the fact that you're doing this shows that this church is doing that, but people are consuming their faith in different ways, and so
leave it up to the millennials for pulling me into the podcast. I'm like your mom and dad. Matter of fact, our radio broadcasts are back to back to each other on Sunday morning. So, so it was my podcast just was like, hey, Pastor, there's a
different
group
way.
of us. Yeah, there is another way that we can do this.
You just got to do both ends. I mean, there are so many mediums for people to consume what they're looking for.
Right.
And we got to use all those mediums, whether it's podcast, traditional AM radio, FM radio.
And that's the key.
YouTube, all these things matter.
You have said it, instead of either this one or that.
Yeah, it's all.
Look, how do we continue to do all? And we can do all with the technology and all that we have right now. Now, family. So you come from a family. What about your family?
Yeah, so I'm married, Dr. Jamila Smith-Young. Shout out to my wife. We met in Knoxville, actually. So she's about 2 years younger than me. Ironically, we grew up probably 2 miles apart.
Really?
Never knew each other till we had to meet in Knoxville. We have 2 beautiful, active kids.
What are their ages?
11-year-old girl and a 7-year-old boy.
Oh, bless your heart.
That boy, he wears me out. Every time I turn around, he's asking for Robux.
Hey, look, my goodness. And those I think Trey hit me up for something the other day. They're like, well, this is it's not anything new. And I'm like, okay, all right.
Yeah. He's a gamer.
My goodness.
But they are a lot of fun. So, love them. And that's why I do everything I do. It's for, that next generation, for Paxton and Zoe. We want to make sure that they choose Memphis when they have options. When they go to college and they decide to, move to the next city, we want that to be Memphis.
So what is your vision of Memphis then for your children? What kind of Memphis do we want to create
Memphis.
for them? All right.
Obviously we know we have to address the crime. We want it to be a place where there's opportunities for all. We want it to be a place where we're growing minority wealth, knowing that minorities make up 65% of the population. And then I want to lean into the arts and culture. I think it's really, really important that we lean into what makes Memphis special, the things that, other cities can't replicate. I often talk about downtown and how we have such diversity. If you look at the racial makeup of our MSA, of our metro region, and the makeup of downtown, it's identical. And that means that we just naturally have diversity. What other communities are striving for, we have it naturally.
Wow.
We have that culture and that swag and that vibrancy, and I want that to continue to be the feel for our city, and I want Paxton and Zoe to embrace that.
That's all right. Well, wisdom. What in terms would you say for wisdom? Where did you get your wisdom from? And
I think it certainly starts with my parents, because they listen to everybody. I think I heard this quote, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but the quote said something to the effect of, a wise man can entertain the ideas of others without accepting them. And so I always use that as my goal. Like, I will talk to anybody. Right. I will entertain and listen to their ideas. I'll hear them, but I don't have to make it mine.
Right.
I always counter and balance that with what I believe, and sometimes it may change what I believe based on what I'm hearing. But I think wisdom is being able to listen and hear and adjust your position and your actions based on the information in front of you.
So is that the kind of advice you would give to somebody aspiring one day to be a CEO?
Absolutely.
As it relates to wisdom?
Absolutely. We want to make sure that you are listening to people, and then also just keeping people at the center of everything that you do. Sometimes you can start thinking it's all about you, but at the end of the day, it's all about the other people. It's all about service. And so, when you keep that at heart, regardless of what you do. You can be the CEO of a Fortune 100 company, but if you keep people first, you're going to continue to be successful.
You know, there was a scripture in Proverbs that I was reading just this morning about that it is in the multitude of advisors that there is safety.
Absolutely.
And so wise people know how to surround themselves with the right individuals that can speak into them. And I like what you said, to entertain even others' ideas without making it your own, using it to in terms of, well, how do you extend grace, to people? Because these are times, especially as CEO, the times have been changing, the pandemic, and I think one of the biggest issues that we're facing now, do you work at home? Do you work in the office?
Yeah.
How do you extend the grace? And even what do you think about I guess what are they calling it these days? Work from home, the virtual.
Yeah, we call it hybrid because we do both. We have people in the office and people at home, and so I'll answer that part. For us, I missed when we were in the pandemic those creative collisions, like being able to walk down the hall and just see somebody that I was thinking about and have a conversation, and we're solving problems in real time. So that was one of the things I think we missed.
Creative collisions.
Yeah, creative collisions. Like you exchange creativity when you just have those interactions with people. So I think that companies should move to some hybrid format where you can have some work from home, but we got to get together from time to time. And then when it comes to grace, for me, it's just remembering that people are people, and we all fall short of the glory of God. We all make mistakes, and so just understanding that it's not about me, it's about the service that we provide, it's about the goal that we have together. And so when you have that mindset, for me, it's not hard to forgive, it's not hard to give grace, because we all make mistakes, and I want that grace when I make the mistake too.
I like that. And I like that creative collision, and then just that hybrid. How do you create that hybrid going forth? Well, in terms of just directions, 42, 20-something years in community development. Going forward, I mean, do you have mentors? How do you surround yourself with counsel and so forth?
Absolutely. I mean, I look to mentors. Archie Willis, that's probably my greatest mentor. I worked for him coming up in the community development space, and he's just raw and uncut, straightforward, and sincere. I mean,
that's all right.
He does it for the people. He don't take no nonsense. And if I ask him a question, I know he's gonna give me 100% uncut. But I listen to everybody, and so I'll take counsel from anybody. And so I just like to continue to listen. And so whether I call him a mentor or a friend or a colleague, I take all of that feedback and input and try to apply it where I see fit.
So in terms of that then going forth and my goodness, 10 years ago, would you have imagined that you're where you are today?
I wouldn't have imagined it. My goal at that point was to be the director of housing 10 years ago, and God saw fit in 2016 for that to take place. I had a chance encounter with Mayor Strickland, and he took a chance on me, and so I appreciate him for that. And I'm proud of where God has brought me, and look forward to just continuing to make an impact.
So really, when it comes to direction, God has kind of been fast forward.
Yeah, he's been choreographing this whole thing, and so for me, it's just keeping my mind set on service, and whatever God has for me, it'll happen. And if it doesn't, it wasn't for me.
Well, this has definitely been a season of innovation, because with the pandemic, everyone have had to pivot. Everyone have had to come up with new ways of doing different things. How did you know that it was time to move to downtown Memphis?
Well, I didn't know. It was tough because I had some projects that I was really, really passionate about that are continuing to move forward at HCD right now. But I talked to somebody I really respect, and they told me that when I struggled with the decision, I knew it was an opportunity. And what they said was, you can't think that your job as the director is to finish everything that you start. Sometimes you have to cue things up for the next person to take the baton and finish it for you. And so I thought about that, and I thought about my predecessor when I came into housing and community development, how I got an opportunity to finish some of the things that he had started, like South City and Foot Park, that I talked about. And I thought about some of the things that I had going, like historic Melrose and Tillman Cove and Binghampton. And I thought that made a lot of sense. Like, we've queued these things up. I'm going to pass the baton, let somebody else finish that part, and I'm going to queue some other things up in downtown Memphis.
So it's not always a leader's job to perhaps finish in one organization,
right,
but rather at least to prepare something and to get it ready for that next person.
Yeah, that's how communities move forward. That's how we advance. That's how organizations advance, is by having consistent, good leadership that's always pushing us forward, instead of getting complacent and waiting until you finish every single thing that you've started.
Queuing up for the next generation, for the next leader. So you're dropping a lot of these nuggets.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Paul. So in terms of moving forth, I mean, you were with the housing, and now you're downtown.
Right.
How do you balance what you all are doing downtown when there are probably so many other areas in Memphis that are in need of so much?
Yeah, I get that question often. Like, why do you guys do so much downtown? You need to spend that money in other places. And what I always tell people is that it's not either or. We got to do both and. We need downtown to thrive, because when capital money can be spent anywhere. Like, if you think about where the money comes from to invest in real estate and all the things that we need done from the private sector, that money is sourced in New York, on Wall Street, and all these other places where capital comes from, and they can invest those dollars anywhere USA. And so we want that money to come to Memphis, and in order to do that, our downtown has to show well. It has to be a place that they believe is going to thrive, and it's going to be a place where if they make an investment, they'll make a return. And so you want your downtown to shine, so that when they begin to deploy their money in the other parts of the city, that they can benefit from that. And we also need to make sure that our city is focused on building up community facilities in those other neighborhoods, so that private capital see those neighborhoods as opportunities for investment as well. So it's both and, not either or.
I like that. The downtown is the living room, as you stated,
right,
for everything. For the whole region, including South Haven, since you are since you are in North Mississippi.
Right, absolutely.
At this point. What types of challenges that you see face our city going forth, and then how do we address that? And on a personal note, how do you juggle all of that, even just with your personal life?
Yeah, well, I mean, I believe it through and through, so it's not hard for me to juggle it, because I live and breathe it every day. And in terms of the challenges, obviously crime is the number one issue that's facing everybody, but I often try to remind people that crime is the outcome. It's the outcome of a lot of the challenges that we have in our community and as a society. And it's not just a Memphis thing. Like, every major city in the country is struggling with an increase in crime. And so, finding a balanced approach to identifying how we get those that are doing violent gun crimes out of our community, and hopefully put them in a criminal justice system that's focused on reform, and balancing that with prevention, making sure that we are embracing the young people so that they don't decide to take on a life of crime, when this void is made by this other person leaving the society. And so, balancing that crime with economic development, youth, arts and culture, neighborhood, community development, those are the things I think we should focus on.
Well, you've been doing a whole lot noteworthy. One final question: how can Brown help you to further the work there in downtown Memphis? And better yet, how could downtown Memphis and Brown just collaborate together?
Yeah, what I would love to see is Brown, bringing people downtown, coming to enjoy the public assets, the parks, the restaurants, the museums, the Orpheum, the Grizzlies. There's so much. Like I said, this is our living room. So bring the Brown patrons down there so that they can enjoy the city. I want people to come downtown so that it truly is a space for everyone. We also manage Beale Street. I didn't reference that, but we have Handy Park.
Okay.
I would love to encourage churches to use Handy Park to do some creative services, maybe some collaborative services, some multi-faith services. Bringing multiple churches together for services.
But believe it or not, we actually used to do a service out in the park, downtown Memphis. Oh my goodness!
I thought I was innovative.
Hey, well, back in the 90s,
okay.
this was before COVID and before outdoor worship was the thing. But downtown Memphis, we would go often and have a service probably almost once a year downtown. Yeah.
Well, I mean that's a way that I think the church could truly engage, because if we're going to be a downtown for everyone, we got to it can't just be partying and drinking. Right. We also need to bring the faith, bring all of who we are.
You've resurrected an idea. We might need to go back down. I did discover that I have members that live actually downtown. So, awesome. Yes, Naomi was sharing with me that she lives on Harbortown.
Okay.
And I was at Bluff City Park, and she was like, "Yeah, Pastor, I live just right across there."
Yeah. Fourth Bluff Park. I bet
Fourth Bluff.
Great park. There's so many great amenities downtown that I just want people to come down and enjoy.
Well, that's all right. Well, look, thank you so very much for just joining me for our conversation today. Let me know what you think. Would love for you to connect with me on my website as well as social media and the other outlets. But I want you to stay tuned for even more conversations that will inspire you just to do the unthinkable at times like this. Again, appreciate Paul Young for sharing with us today. Look, you have a blessed day, and let's continue to move our city and our churches forward for the Lord.